Have you ever crossed paths with someone who made no effort to stand out? They spoke little, never tried to shine, didn't seek approval, and yet their presence seemed to quiet the space around them. There was no performance, no need for attention. They simply existed with a steady calm, an unshakable confidence, and a pull that was impossible to ignore. That kind of attraction has nothing to do with looks or style. It is born from something deeper, an internal force. What ancient thinkers described as inner power. In a society obsessed with visibility and validation, there is a paradox most people miss. The harder you try to be noticed, the less impact you have. Real magnetism grows when you stop performing and start being. It is not about what others see on the surface, but about the emotional atmosphere you create when you are near them. People do not gravitate toward you because you appear flawless. They are drawn to you because your presence brings ease, because around you their nervous system relaxes. Stoic philosophy teaches that lasting attraction is rooted in mastery over oneself, not in external traits. Marcus Aurelius reflected on the idea that a composed mind becomes the true source of beauty. When you remain centered while everything else feels unstable, you project a quiet reliability that naturally earns trust and respect. Authentic magnetism is revealed not in how you are perceived, but in how you respond to life itself. When criticism does not disturb your balance, when coldness from others does not harden your heart, when misunderstanding does not push you into reaction, that steadiness becomes a form of elegance that time cannot erode. In this message, we will uncover 6 enduring Stoic practices that cultivate this kind of presence. Not through effort or performance, but through alignment with who you truly are, grounded, calm, and inwardly strong. The first practice is deceptively simple, yet incredibly rare: listening with intention. In a culture where everyone is eager to speak, explain, and express, those who genuinely listen have become uncommon. And rarity creates attraction. Most people are not listening to understand. They are listening only long enough to respond. While the other person is talking, the mind is already preparing its next move. Stoic thinkers believed that clarity only emerges when the mind is quiet. Only then can you grasp not just the sound of words, but the meaning beneath them. Epictetus taught that nature gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, so that listening would outweigh speaking. This idea goes far beyond manners. It points to a mental discipline. Listening is not a function of hearing. It is a state of presence. When you offer someone your undivided attention, you give them something rare and deeply human: the experience of being acknowledged, of feeling understood without being judged. Recall a moment when you spoke to someone who truly listened. They did not interrupt or rush. Their eyes did not wander. They were not searching for clever advice or a story of their own. They stayed still, quiet, fully there. And in that silence, you felt safe enough to reveal more than you planned. This is the influence of a genuine listener. They create value without speaking much at all. For the Stoics, silence was never a sign of weakness. It was evidence of control. Choosing not to speak immediately is a demonstration of inner authority. You no longer feel the urge to defend your image or dominate the conversation. You allow your ego to step back so understanding can step forward. That humility carries a subtle force, a calm confidence that others feel instantly. In a world where volume is mistaken for importance, the person who listens deeply becomes unforgettable. They do not chase admiration because their attention itself is compelling. By listening, you communicate something powerful without words. You matter, and your experience has value. This is a need shared by every human being. To begin developing this practice, approach each conversation with full awareness, as if nothing else exists in that moment. When another person is speaking, release everything else from your awareness. Do not rehearse an answer. Do not analyze or evaluate. Simply give them your full attention. Notice the tone of their voice, the expressions in their eyes, and the emotion carried beneath each sentence. Listen with the intention of understanding, not replying. This same skill can also be directed inward. Set aside a few quiet moments each day to observe your own thoughts without interference. Pay attention to what surfaces inside you. The anxieties, the desires, the doubts, and even the silence between thoughts. As you become more familiar with your inner dialogue, your ability to understand others deepens naturally. Compassion grows when awareness expands. Real attraction is not created by clever words, but by the emotional experience people have when they are with you. Someone who listens deeply makes others feel acknowledged. In a world filled with noise, that experience is more valuable than praise. Develop this ability intentionally. Allow your presence to communicate what words cannot. Let your stillness create an environment where others feel comfortable expressing themselves. When you offer that kind of space, you become more than someone people enjoy talking to. You become someone they turn to when they need calm. That is one of the most powerful forms of influence a person can embody. The next practice builds directly on this foundation, developing inner peace. There is a quiet kind of pull that comes from those who remain steady while everything around them feels unstable. When tension rises, they do not mirror it. When others become overwhelmed, they remain grounded, often carrying a gentle ease that puts people at rest. Their presence signals safety. Trust forms without effort. This is the strength of inner peace. In Stoic thought, peace is not the absence of difficulty. It is the ability to remain centered within it. Marcus Aurelius reflected that tranquility emerges when one lives in alignment with reason. The external world will always be unpredictable, but your response does not have to be. The Stoics taught that while events are beyond our command, our reactions remain within our authority. Mastering this truth creates a strength that does not depend on circumstances. Picture your mind as a clear surface of water. When it is undisturbed, everything appears sharp and accurate. When agitation enters, clarity disappears. The mind behaves the same way. When worry, frustration, or fear take control, perception becomes distorted. Only a calm mind can recognize what truly matters. Peace is not something you inherit. It is something you build through repetition. When pressure appears, slow down. Breathe deeply. Ask yourself whether the situation is within your influence. If action is possible, move with intention. If not, release it. This approach sits at the heart of Stoic discipline. It is straightforward, yet transformative. Modern culture rewards speed, reaction, and constant performance. Inner peace chooses a different path. It pauses, it observes, it reflects before responding. That measured stillness gives rise to a presence that feels grounded, confident, and quietly commanding. A person who carries peace does not need to project strength. Their stability speaks for itself. Praise does not inflate them. Criticism does not unsettle them. They recognize the temporary nature of success and failure alike. What remains constant is how they conduct themselves through change. This is why people are drawn to calm individuals. Much like seeking refuge during a storm, others gravitate toward those who feel steady. They are not looking for solutions to every problem. They are seeking reassurance. The ability to transmit calm is among the most compelling qualities a person can possess. To develop this state, isolation is not required. What is needed is distance from restless thinking. Dedicate a small portion of each day to quiet. Step away from screens, notifications, and distractions. Sit with your breath. Allow thoughts to come and go without attachment. With consistent practice, the mind begins to settle naturally. When peace becomes part of you, words become secondary. Others notice it in your posture, your movements, and the rhythm of your breathing. This kind of calm cannot be imitated. It belongs only to those who have learned self-mastery. When you remain composed in disorder and still carry warmth within you, you embody a presence that is both magnetic and deeply respected. The next practice builds on this foundation: speaking with intention. Some individuals barely need to say anything before attention shifts toward them. The room grows quiet, not because their voice is loud, but because their words carry intention. At the same time, others speak endlessly and still fail to be heard. The difference has nothing to do with volume or confidence. It comes from purpose. Stoic philosophy teaches that language is never neutral. Every sentence shapes energy. Words can restore, and they can also damage. That awareness is why the wise are selective. They choose restraint over excess. They understand that speech should rise from awareness, not impulse. Instead of talking to dominate a conversation or impress an audience, they wait until speaking truly matters. When they do speak, their tone is steady, their message clear, and their intent honest. This is why people listen, not out of pressure, but because something real is being communicated. Those who speak with intention do not seek validation. They know that presence does not require constant explanation. They recognize that silence, when used well, often carries more influence than endless commentary. Knowing when to remain quiet and when to contribute reflects inner discipline. That discipline is the root of dignity and personal gravity. In an era driven by instant opinions and rushed reactions, thoughtful pauses become striking. When you slow down before speaking, others feel that your words are not filler. They are considered. Because of that, what you say holds more value. Think about the people you respect most. They are rarely the loudest voices. They are the ones whose words linger, provoking reflection long after the moment has passed. A single well-chosen sentence can shift someone's emotional state or redirect the course of their entire day. At the same time, careless speech can leave lasting harm. Speaking with intention also reveals integrity. When actions contradict words, people notice immediately. But when behavior aligns with speech, trust forms naturally, followed by genuine respect. Stoic teaching emphasized that calm is not something to discuss, but something to demonstrate. Language gains strength only when it reflects lived behavior. And there is another layer often overlooked: the way you speak inwardly. Internal dialogue shapes everything. Constant self-criticism, comparison, and unspoken judgment slowly erode confidence from within. Instead, cultivate patience in your inner voice. Treat your own mind with understanding. When your self-talk becomes steady and supportive, your external communication follows the same tone. Persuasive speech may impress briefly, but purposeful speech leaves a lasting impression. The true power of language does not come from sound, it comes from the mental state behind it. When words are guided by clarity, sincerity, and composure, they resonate beyond noise. Say less, but ensure what you say matters. Let silence work for you. Let your words reflect the calm you carry inside. When speech comes from purpose, it earns respect without demanding it. The next practice builds on this inner foundation: meeting adversity with courage. Difficulty is unavoidable. Every life encounters loss, disappointment, and moments where expectations collapse. Strength is not measured by avoiding these experiences, but by how you stand within them. That response shapes character and creates a quiet form of attraction. Magnetism is not found in joy during easy seasons. It reveals itself in steadiness during hardship. Someone who remains grounded while circumstances unravel, who responds with restraint while emotions surge, leaves a deep impression. In them, others recognize the strength they are searching for. Stoic thinkers viewed challenges not as enemies, but as instructors. Obstacles were seen as pathways for growth. Difficulty was meant to refine character. Just as pressure shapes raw material into something durable, Life's trials shape resilience. Resilience does not mean the absence of pain. It means refusing to let pain dictate identity. You may stumble, but you rise with more awareness, deeper calm, and greater clarity. This is the quiet strength of those who have endured hardship without losing their humanity. When adversity appears, shift the question. Move away from asking why misfortune has arrived. Ask instead what lesson is being offered. That shift transforms suffering into training. A person who can extract meaning from difficulty becomes impossible to break. Stoic philosophy held a principle centered on embracing one's path fully. Events were not merely tolerated, but integrated into growth. When you learn to accept even imperfect moments as necessary steps, hardship no longer weakens you. It deepens you, it grounds you, and it shapes a presence that remains steady no matter what arises. A person with real strength never feels the need to announce it. Their response to difficulty says everything. They do not complain, accuse, or search for sympathy. They absorb the impact, regain their footing, and continue forward. That quiet resilience, steady and unforced, creates a presence far more compelling than any display of power. Others may never know the full weight of what you have endured, but they sense it in your gaze, in the steadiness of your tone, and in the calm way you move through life. When hardship appears, and you still choose grace, clarity, and forward motion, you reveal a depth of strength that naturally earns admiration. This leads to the next principle: choosing integrity over approval. Many people lose their natural pull because they spend their lives trying to satisfy everyone around them. They adjust their words, their actions, and even their beliefs to fit expectations until, over time, they become disconnected from themselves. The paradox is striking. The more someone chases acceptance, the more invisible they become. When you live in alignment with your own principles, even those who disagree with you feel a sense of respect. Stoic philosophy places character above popularity. Marcus Aurelius reflected that when your actions are guided by what is right, public opinion loses its power. Praise fades, criticism shifts, integrity remains. Integrity acts like an inner compass. It keeps you oriented while opinions change and pressure intensifies. It requires the courage to stand by your values when compromise would be easier. It means declining paths that conflict with who you are, even if doing so disappoints others. It also means choosing honesty when silence would feel safer. What makes integrity powerful is that it never needs to be announced. It becomes visible through consistency, through how you treat people, and through the choices you make when no one is watching. Many people recognize moments in their lives when they altered themselves to gain approval, changing their tone, appearance, or beliefs just to fit in. Over time, it becomes clear that approval cannot offer lasting peace because it depends on forces outside your control. When your sense of worth rises and falls based on how others see you, satisfaction remains out of reach. A magnetic individual is not universally adored, but deeply respected for staying true. They do not shift their identity for praise or trade their principles for comfort. They choose what is right even when they stand alone. That reliability generates a quiet authority, one that draws attention even from those who disagree. Stoicism teaches that value is rooted in virtue, not applause. Seneca warned that no one can live well while enslaved by the opinions of others. The moment you release the need for validation, clarity returns. As you reconnect with who you are, you develop a form of magnetism that cannot be copied. Integrity does not make a person distant, it makes them dependable. Others may not share your worldview, but they trust that you will never abandon yourself. This is why individuals with integrity are often sought out in moments of uncertainty. They become sources of honesty, stability, and grounded presence. Living this way is not always comfortable. There will be moments of isolation, You may be misunderstood or labeled inflexible, yet temporary loneliness is far less costly than permanently losing your identity. Those who walk away because you live authentically were never aligned with you to begin with. Those who remain do so because they see the real person, not a performance. Over time, you discover that integrity carries its own quiet pull. It does not demand attention or explanation. It inspires trust without noise. True light does not need to argue for its existence. It simply illuminates. The same applies to people. When you live according to your values, recognition is no longer something you chase. You become a point of stability others naturally gravitate toward. This brings us to the final principle: prioritizing growth over perfection. Many people become trapped in the pursuit of flawlessness. They want perfect words, perfect actions, and a life without error. Yet the pursuit of perfection often creates distance from authenticity. Perfection is an illusion. Progress is real. A magnetic individual is not without flaws but committed to continual development. Stoic thinkers never aimed for perfection. They understood life as an ongoing process of refinement where mistakes are unavoidable. Marcus Aurelius wrote that rising again after a fall is a form of victory. Within Stoic thought, failure is not a conclusion. It is part of training. Just as strength develops through resistance, the mind grows through challenge. There is an irony in perfection. Those who try hardest to appear flawless often feel distant, but those who acknowledge their imperfections and share their unfinished path feel relatable and inspiring. They remind us that value does not require perfection. It requires the willingness to learn. True magnetism does not come from never making mistakes, but from never abandoning growth. A person committed to self-improvement carries humility, persistence, and sincerity. They do not compete or compare. They understand they are unfinished, yet they show up each day with intention. That dedication makes them memorable. Think of someone who treats themselves with patience. They do not punish every misstep. They extract lessons instead. They do not collapse after setbacks. They ask what the experience is meant to teach. Every stumble becomes refinement. Every scar becomes evidence of courage. Stoicism teaches that fulfillment is not found in perfection, but in strengthening character through reason and practice. When growth becomes the focus, fear of mistakes fades. You become more adaptable, open, and compassionate toward yourself. You are not required to be your best version today. You are only asked to continue becoming. Becoming slightly better than you were the day before is more than enough. That is where real change begins. The moment you stop chasing an image of flawlessness, something powerful happens. You relax into honesty. And that authenticity draws people in effortlessly because most individuals are exhausted from pretending, from adjusting themselves to fit expectations that never truly reflect who they are. When you allow yourself to live openly, even with imperfections, you give others silent permission to do the same. That openness creates the deepest form of connection. So release the fear of making mistakes. There is no shame in acknowledging that you are still learning. Shift the question you ask yourself. Instead of wondering whether you have arrived, ask whether you have grown compared to yesterday. With each day, add a little more patience, a little more discipline, and a little more trust in the process. Transformation rarely arrives in dramatic moments. It unfolds through steady, sincere progress. The most compelling individual is not the one who claims to have finished the journey, but the one who continues moving forward with clarity, humility, and curiosity. Life does not demand perfection. It asks for commitment to progress. Stoic wisdom reminds us that while outcomes remain uncertain, effort is always within our control. Direct your attention toward the path itself rather than the imagined endpoint. Along that path of growth, strength develops naturally, and with it comes a form of magnetism. that no external appearance or surface-level charm can replicate. When you reflect on your own journey, you will notice that genuine attraction was never built on status, words, or image. It emerged from the calm, discipline, and sincerity you practiced daily. The 6 Stoic habits explored here: listening with presence, nurturing inner calm, choosing words with care, meeting hardship with courage, living by principle, and committing to growth, do more than shape how others see you. They reconnect you with who you truly are. When self-mastery becomes your focus, the urge to prove yourself fades. The need for approval loses its grip. You come to understand that worth is not granted by external validation, but formed through self-respect. Inner strength does not belong to those who never make mistakes, but to those composed enough to recognize them, adjust, and continue forward. Marcus Aurelius reflected that peace arises from living in alignment with oneself. When your life follows that principle, magnetism no longer needs to be manufactured. It becomes a natural byproduct of how you move through the world. Others sense it in your attention, in the way you listen, and in the steady reliability of your actions. If this message resonates with you, let it be a personal declaration. Choose growth. Choose progress over perfection. Choose calm over constant performance. Choose to become more honest, more grounded, and more aligned with who you are meant to be. Stay connected and continue this journey of building inner strength together. In a world full of noise and distraction, the most lasting form of attraction is not about drawing attention to yourself, but about offering others a sense of peace simply by being present.